Good evening and thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the news on ETV. The former mayor of the Njombe-Penja Council, Paul Erikinge, drags the state of Cameroon to court to what he describes as arbitrary detention. And also in this newscast, the former Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization says that the politics of Head of State President Paul Biya is embodied with a lot of illusion. Plus, Elekam officials of 5 municipalities here in the economic capital Douala displaced the biometric kits to the market, and they justify their action by saying that very little number of traders have so far registered, probably because of lack of time. These are major headlines, details and more just in a moment. Thank you so much, viewers, for joining us tonight. We begin right away in politics, where Elekam officials of 5 municipalities, that is at the Douala Municipal 1 Council 2, 3, and 4, and 5, have said most traders are yet to be registered on the biometric electoral list, probably because they spend most of their time in the market. In the wake of that observation, they decided to displace the biometric kits to the market to carry out the registration exercise. Ranibel Satowara descended to the market and brought back the following report.
These traders of the Douala Central Market are queued to register on the biometric kits. Elekam officials of 5 municipalities decided to displace the kits to the market so as to make it accessible to traders who spend the greater part of their time in the markets. They explained that residents in almost every part of the town come to the central market either to buy or for the most part to sell, thus bringing the whole process to the marketplace. Elekam officials said complaints about time and proximity factor on the slow pace would have been solved. They said they have to intensify their activities in order to meet up with the previewed number before the fast approaching deadline. Emmanuel Kwadika of the Vuri agency said they were 50% gone in the registration of the 500 previewed potential voters in the Vuri division. Most traders who registered on the spot expressed their satisfaction as they testified that they were reluctant to leave their businesses to go and register in the councils or Elekam offices.
And if Michel Foto is somewhat partially free from the charges levied against him, as legal actions that were levied against him have been dropped by the Special Criminal Court in the capital city, Yaoundé. This is after he reimbursed the 230 million francs CFA he was accused of having embezzled. And in the following report, our Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Akon tells us that the defense lawyers say it is a proof that the Special Criminal Court is credible. His report.
The Special Criminal Court has finally dropped a charge against Yves Michel Foto for the embezzlement of 230 million aviation taxis during his tenure as general manager of the defunct national air carrier Kamer. The court's decision Monday follows the reimbursement of the 230 million francs by Yves Michel Foto. One of the articles creating the Special Criminal Court states that a charge is dropped against an accused when he or she reimburses the stolen phone. Defense lawyers of Yves Michel Foto expressed satisfaction over the court's decision. They say it lends credibility to the Special Criminal Court. Yves Michel Foto is currently serving a 25-year jail term over the embezzlement of state funds destined for the purchase of a Boeing business jet for the presidential family.
And the detained former Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization, Marafa Amidou Yaya, in an exclusive interview with most private print media that was being published today in the country, said that Head of State President Paul Biya is a leader whose politics is embodied with a lot of illusion. He equally noted that he is simply concerned with the plight of innocent Cameroonians whose liberty are being confiscated, but he emphasized that he would not stop publishing letters. Solomon Amabo tells us more in the following report. we surely shall be coming back to the report of the detained former Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization, who says that the politics of head of state Paul Biya is embodied with a lot of illusion. And we take you back here to the economic capital Douala, where the former mayor of the Njombe-Penja Council, Paul Erikinge, has dragged the state of Cameroon to the United Nations Court, saying that he is decrying what he describes as arbitrary detention. And Paul Erikinge, that is what he said. Our senior reporter tells us more in the following report.
In his 6-page letter, Paul Erikinge claims that Cameroonian justice is blind and wants to finish him at all costs. His only crime committed, he says, is to have asked the French multinational to pay local taxes while he was at the helm of the Njombe-Penja Council. In this document, Paul Erikinge affirms that the judicial procedure condemning him is full of human rights violations. He cites as example his life jail pronounced on February 29, 2002 by the Mungo High Court. A judgment, he says, is void of mandate of arrest or detention as provided for by Article 397 of the new Criminal Court Procedure. Thus, as regards this failure, the procedure would have simply been annulled. He claims that the Littoral Court of Appeal aggravated the case by confirming his detention after reducing his jail term to 10 years. The arbitrary detainee, as he calls himself, says he now turns on to the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights through the work group on arbitrary detention to at last regain liberty, a liberty, he writes, unjustly lost since 2008.
And now the National Communication Forum, which took place in the capital city, Yaoundé, is almost 1 month old now, and the follow-up committee for the implementation of some of the decisions that were carried out at the forum is yet to be put in place. And a raison d'etre for Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Akon to meet the Communication Minister Issa Shiroma Bakari to know how far the ministry has gone in the execution of some of the resolutions that were being arrived at in the forum. His report.
A follow-up committee to effectively implement the resolutions taken at the December Yaoundé National Communication Forum is yet to be put in place 1 month after its announcement at the Yaoundé Forum.
The final report of the General Estate of the Communication is already ready. I have sent it to the Prime Minister. And when the Prime Minister gives his approval, the final approval of the resolution and all proposal, then we will put in place the follow-up committee. And the follow-up committee will be in charge of the implementation of all the items that which came out of the forum.
The National Communication Forum was convened to enable media practitioners discuss and find concrete solutions to the problems plaguing the media landscape in Cameroon.
No stone will be left unturned in the process of implementing resolution decisions which were made during the forum, the General Estate of Communication. As you know, many administrations are involved. All the administration which are involved in the process will be part of the process when it comes to the implementation of the resolution that were agreed during the General Forum of Communication.
The Communication Minister Issa Shiroma Bakari, they're talking on just how far the ministry has gone as far as the implementation of some of the resolutions that were arrived at during the National Communication Forum, which took place in the capital city, Yaoundé, are being gone. And now let's talk religion, where the doctrine of the Roman Catholic Church does not allow for sinners to partake in the symbolic Last Supper that is commonly called the Holy Communion. A senior priest at the St. John's Parish in Dedo here in the economic capital, Douala said even a solution can be denied to an acclaimed sinner. And he was speaking in the wake of a recent refusal by a priest in the cathedral, still here in the economic capital, Douala, to give the Holy Communion to a political figure. And the situation is said to be bringing a lot of controversy, as you, Ranibel Satowara, tells us.
The issue of a Catholic priest refusing to give the spiritual body of Christ to a political figure, unlike every other Christian, has become a subject of controversy within the Christian community. Father Christian Chwani of the St. Peter and Paul Cathedral here in Douala accused the said man of belonging to a secret sect that is against the doctrine of the Roman Catholic Church. Many have argued that the action was unfair, judging from the fact that the said Christian was an active member of that congregation, attending all services and paying all dues, and so deserved to equally share in the Holy Communion. But as a senior priest at the St. John's Parish in Deido explained, the doctrine of the Roman Catholic Church stipulates that if any Christian is known as a sinner, he or she cannot partake in the symbolic Last Supper. He said those whose sins cannot be known can partake, but would be left to God and their consciences to contend with. Meantime, the acting father has refused to make any statement concerning the matter.
The report there by Ranibel Satowara is coming in the wake of a refusal by the priest of that cathedral to give the symbolic Holy Communion to one of its members. That was a political figure. And we take you now out of Cameroon, but still in the African continent. France is bent on assisting Mali in the ongoing crisis, and reports say other African troops or other African countries are preparing or are bracing up to send their troops to join the French to combat the Islamist rebels that are contributing to the so many uprisings in that country. And senior reporter Chris Toby tells us in the following report that the Islamist militants have already conquered the northern part of Mali.
The French troops sent to the Central African towns of Mopti and Bamako is estimated at 550, and reports say they will be joined by those from the neighboring African states of Niger, Burkina Faso, Togo, and Nigeria. This move comes after Islamic groups held several French hostages and equally threatened to attack French soil. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius justified his country's intervention on the fact that there was high risk for the Islamists, now called terrorists, to attack and capture the capital city Bamako. France equally involved in weeks of campaign against Islamic rebels in Mali, where chaos has been for over 10 months now. Defense Minister said most hideouts of the rebels, including their training campus and logistics, had been attacked and destroyed. With the presence of the French military, reports say the rebels have retreated in the east, though the French forces are still having it difficult with well-armed rebels in western areas. The United Kingdom's provided 2 C-17 transport planes to assist the French effort. The report says over 100 militants have died, including 11 Malian soldiers and a French helicopter pilot in less than 1 week. French warplanes nonetheless bombed the town of Gao in eastern Mali Saturday, extending the French attack into the rebels' territory.
The uprising there in Mali, which has cost over 100,000 or 100 lives since last weekend. And it is on that note that we come to the end of this first segment of the news. But Talking Point is up next. Thank you so much, viewers, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. Today we are going to be talking about some of the projects or construction works that have been carried out in the country, in the city of Douala, in the entire country as a whole, which sometimes collapse under unclear circumstances or get bad under unclear circumstances. And today we have a safety expert. It is Eric Vodmia Fomantum. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good evening. Pleasure is mine.
Thank you so much. We invited you tonight qualified as a safety expert rather, to tell us why some of the construction works we are talking about, works like roads, maybe buildings, they unnecessarily or without any under unclear circumstances do collapse at one point in time.
Yes, this is because when you don't follow rules that are set down, standards and norms that are set down for construction, then you are bound to have such a situation. It is unfortunate that we have this case talking about the Omnisport, the multi-complex sports center in Douala, Daido, that collapsed. We are saying that it's unfortunate, but it is fortunate because we do not have any loss of life. There are many houses here under construction or during construction that people have, the houses and the structures have collapsed and killed people, or people have fallen during construction, people and died. So this goes to talk about the issue or the absence of safety regulations in our construction. And
talking about taking into consideration the norms that are not being put in place, what do you mean exactly? Let's take the case like you already said, because the objective of this tete-a-tete was to find out what actually was the reason for the collapse of the multi-sports complex at Bepanda. What could be the reason, the actual reason? Let's be specific.
Okay, when you're doing an accident investigation, because an accident actually happened, even though it did not kill somebody, but an accident happened and properties were damaged. So when you're doing an accident investigation, what you do is you look at the immediate cause, and you also look at the root causes of the accident. Most people focus more on the immediate causes of the accident, which in this case was as a result of structural problem, because the structure collapsed, which means they did not follow the standards for building constructions. Probably the pillars were not well structured, were not well built. The mixture was very, very fragile, and that's the reason why the structure collapsed. If you look at it critically, you see that this is a very serious issue, and I say that we are very lucky because this is a center that's been constructed, or that's under construction, to host a sports center which will have thousands of people inside the structure at the same time. So imagine an incident where this structure was constructed and it did not collapse at this moment, or these weaknesses of the structure was not seen, and during a manifestation or a sport or a game activity and the structure collapsed and killed thousands of people. So it's a very, very serious issue. Even though it did not kill somebody, we need to look at the root causes and not only at the immediate cause. The immediate cause will be poor structural calculations in construction and poor quality of materials that have been used. But if you want to look at the real cause of it, you go beyond that.
The real cause of the collapse?
Yes, the real cause or the latent or the root cause of the collapse, you go beyond that. You first look at, this is a government contract. How are contracts being awarded? We know the issues of contracts being awarded by who knows who, or by people putting envelopes under the table. So if this structure was, or if this contract was awarded by somebody giving 10% of the contract value to be awarded this contract, and then the person is left with nothing as benefit, because if you want to calculate the profit margin of a typical construction company is between 15 and 20%.
With the case of the Bepanda Multi-Sports Complex,
yeah.
I see the contractors are involved, the government too are there. Who failed in its duty? Who failed at who actually failed in its duty? Like you are talking about evaluation, and I should say that the governor of the littoral region actually went down to the scene of the incident and talked of an evaluation or a technical evaluation crew to be put in place, or a commission of inquiry. It is coming later, like you just said. Who failed at doing something to make sure that the incident that happened or could be avoided?
When you look at it from the surface, you technically will say the contractor failed in his duty. He was asked to build a structure, and he accepted or proved that from his past experience that he can do such a structure, or he can build such a structure, and that's not what we have seen. So if you look at that from the surface, like I said, from the immediate cause, you can give the responsibility of the failure from the contractor. But for you to actually attribute the responsibility for the failure, you need to go beyond that. Like I said, how did the contractor get the market? Who selected the contractor in the first place? If it's a contractor, contractors are selected based on their experience and based on their knowledge of building construction. So was the contractor doing the work according to standards or according to what he has been doing or what he has been trained to do? The answer is no. But now if you go to the root causes by finding out, did the contractor know how to do his job? And then was he doing his job according to how he was taught, or was he doing his job because of the means available for him? Like I was trying to explain, the profit margin...
So the issue of know-how is coming into play.
Yes, but like I was trying to explain, there's an issue. There are a lot of issues that you need to look at. You don't just look at the surface. The issue, the contract, the profit margin for a construction company is between 10 and 20%. If the contractor gives 10% of his profit margin to somebody to win the contract, it becomes now difficult for him to manage the rest of the 10% for profit and other issues to construct. So the tendency will be for the contractor to minimize his cost of construction, and you cannot minimize the cost of construction without doing away with quality. So you cannot compromise the two. Quality
because
goes
our
with cost.
reporters actually went there, and allegations from those who are living around the neighborhood were saying that they testified that it collapsed as a result of the quantity and the quality of the material that was being used. Maybe the contractors were not using what they were supposed to, maybe because they were trying to economize some of the material that were put at their disposal.
That is exactly what I'm trying to explain. That if the contractor was selected, either the contractor was given the job, it was his first job and he's not a civil engineer doing the job, or he knows how to do the job, but because he has to pay some money to get the job, reducing his profit margin, it became now difficult for him to use the money he had at that moment to realize the project, and so he had to do the project very economically. But worst is in this situation is that it is a public building. It is a public structure, a structure that was going to host thousands of people. So, and thousands of people jogging, running, doing sports and stuff like that. So it is very, very critical that when you're awarding such a contract, you need to be able to know the quality. You need to be able to put some control measures in place. The second point of the other I want to talk about that can be as a result of that is that the lack of control. For every contract, there is a control mission. And the control mission does not wait to come after the contract has been completed. The control mission is there on day-to-day basis to control the quality of the equipment and the material, certify them, approve them before it is put in place. Was there a control mission?
Meaning that if there was actually a control mission, they were not doing their job.
There could be a control mission, but the control mission is not doing a job. The people have tendency to give bribe to control mission so that they accept the quality of the materials that they are using. So the responsibility is not only that of the contractor, the responsibility is that of the control mission, and even the structure that awarded or the organization that awarded the contract to the contractor. So this is a good case for CONAC to come and actually evaluate, because if we are not very careful, they will be building houses and structures in this country that will kill Cameroonians, that will kill many Cameroonians.
Now we are talking only about a building. We see roads that are being constructed. After 1 or 2 months, you discover that they are getting dilapidated on a daily basis. Could this also be some of the reasons?
Of course, these are the reasons for. It's not like the companies do not have competence, but because it is alleged that in public contracts, for you to win a contract, you need to give out something to get the contract. And when you get the contract, you reduce the quality of the work you're supposed to do, because by giving out something, by giving out 10%, I mean 10% is not new, by giving out 10% of a contract value, you automatically reduce the cost of the contract. And when you reduce cost in such a way that you can no longer use the quality of the material required, you compromise the quality, and that's what we often see on our roads, in structures, or in many contracts that are awarded using those means. So it's an evidence to show that the contract was poorly awarded and that it was not awarded to the right person. So the responsibility goes to the awarding body, it goes to the contractor, and even goes to the control mission.
So now there is also this Agency for Standard and Quality, commonly called by its French acronym as ANO. Don't you think it had a role to play in this issue?
Yes, it is. They have a role to play in this issue, but it is very difficult for ANO to be everywhere there's construction in this country to make sure that they use quality. What ANO do is they do a proactive control or monitoring, which means that they make sure that the materials that are, the construction material that are being sold in the market meets the standard. So they have the responsibility to write standards for construction material as well as standards for any other sector in the country. But the responsibility for control of construction project, I don't think that is within their domain, because they will not be able to do that. They don't have the resources to go into every construction site or every road site to be able to look at that.
How do they not have the resources?
Yes,
it is their responsibility.
No, it is not within their domain. Their domain is to write norms and make sure that the norms are followed. But whenever a contract is awarded, the awarding body makes sure that the control mission is competent to control in terms of the quality and everything that is supposed to be done according to what they call the cahier de charges. So they have that responsibility to do that. And if they don't do that, they can be held responsible for not doing their job, because they are actually paid to do that. And most of them are also private companies, so they take their responsibilities. The government cannot be everywhere. The government cannot do everything. Let's be very honest. Even the best government in the world cannot be everywhere. The private sector is there to do it. The consultants are there to do it. So the government cannot be everywhere. ANO cannot be there writing norms and being in all construction sites, making sure. But the ANO goes from shops to shops, making sure that the quality of construction materials that they sell meets the standard. Recently, you heard about them trying to impound on some imported construction material, rods and stuff like that, that did not meet the Cameroonian standards for rods. So that's the job they can do. And we also need to understand that the standard and norms agency, it's still a new organization. They need to have some experience, but while they need to build their experience and capacity, but while
an indication that the government has to put in place competence. And also Mr. Eric Votmia Fomantum, we thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have come to the end of this edition of the Primetime Newscast on ETV. To you viewers, we thank you so much for watching. We thank you so much for being there with us, and we have a wonderful stay in the company of our programs. Good evening to you all.